Welcome to PureEsperanza's Weaving Stories of Your Well-Being. Tonight's topic is breathing deeply into your thoughts. And if you're not familiar with PureEsperanza, we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing forth consciousness while educating body, mind, and soul in the art of well-being. We are so pleased tonight to once again have our co-host, Balaka Ghosal. She is a green copywriter and has so much to offer us. She is part of our board, which we are so honored to have you, Balaka, on our board, and also is going to be presenting some little video clips on some green tips in honor of Earth Day and are celebrating it here in 2021 and bringing a little bit more consciousness into Earth Day every day. And Balaka, I know you have so much that you can share with us tonight, and I know that your passion is storytelling, so we're really thrilled to be able to share this time with you. And with tonight's topic and us co-creating and collaborating this, we really thought about this moment to be able to share a story of breathing. And it's wonderful because we'll get to touch on so many layers, but to kind of bring it to the point, we can think about it in terms of how when a child is born, and at that moment the child is born, the first thing that they must do when they come out of their mother's womb is to breathe. And it's life itself, right? It's what, watching our children as they're born. If we have that opportunity, we wait for that. We're anticipating, we're anxious to see that and to see that lung fill up like that. And having had 4 home births, I did have that experience of, what that moment was like and how precious it truly is. And it's really significant on so many different levels. And I know that you know quite a bit about breathing, and I believe you know a little bit about yoga breathing too. So I'd love for you to be able to share that with us.
Yes, breathing in the urban setting, we often look at it as a, source of confidence and ability to kind of get things into our control. And yes, I can do it, the motivation. And it almost looks like a skill set, how to breathe properly, like tuck your tummy in, chest puffing out, like walking into the hall like a lion, like I got it all, because I got my blast of oxygen in me. But in reality, breathing, as you said, the first thing that the baby does is breathe, and that crying actually lets the lung open up. That loud crying gets that next breath and the next breath until all the alveoli are, getting flushed with air. Not just the oxygen, there are many subtle elements and qualities to breathing, which I'm going to talk about. But moving away from this mindset that we have about breathing, that it's a skill and it's about how well I do it and how much I do it, I just have a very funny story.
Great.
From back in, folklores have so much to teach us.
Yes.
India is like a land of folklore galore, So here's one boy, let's say is a teenager, 19 or about 20. He's going from one village to another with his fishing line. And he stopped at a pond that has this surrounded by palm trees, and it's beautiful, and said, yeah, I can even nap here, but let me do some fishing first, before heading forward maybe to a friend's house. So he got all his wares laid out, and then the line went in and is sitting patiently. And as it so happened, on those palm trees lived 3 ghosts, Bhoot, One of them was Shambhut, one of them was Rambhut, the third one was Jodhput. And they are watching that boy. Said, hey, yeah, remember, yeah, I used to fish, and yeah, I forgot what they call that thing, that thingy in there in the water. Yeah, what is it? Oh, we've been dead for so long. And they were thinking, racking their brains, and then one said, yeah, I think it's Jorshi. And there's a, no, you're close, but I think it's Borshi. And the third one said, nah, you really have poor memory. It's called Dorshi. And just over one consonant in the beginning, they argued and argued and argued until someone said, hey, why don't you just go and ask him? I was like, yeah, but it's broad daylight. Like, are you sure? Like, we only do these things, spooky things after sunset. It's, there's no one around. Let's go and do it. And as this boy is fishing, he suddenly sees like, broad daylight, three big, like lanky ghosts. And said, hey, dude, can you help us? Like, so we are really arguing over the name of that thing. And he thought, oh, that's all they want from me. And about just when the word was about to blurt out of his mouth, Rambod grabbed him and yanked him off, got him into standing position and said, if you don't say Torshi, I'm going to snap your neck in two. And so, of course, the smartest thing would be to just say, yes, it's Torshi. But before he blurted it, Shambhut came and said, if you don't say it's, Borshi, then I'm going to make a knot of your entire spine and hang you from the palm tree. And the predicament was like, I'm going to die any which way, whatever I choose. And by then, the third one also, Jodhput had given his warning. And well, death was very imminent. And he's like, what do I do? And well, I can't call him a millennial, but being young and smart, he thought that, yeah, you're right. I know how to use it. But the name, I'm kind of missing it. I've got bad memory, And they said, like, darn, like, totally, he's worse than us, Then he said, but there's a solution. Hey, we can come up with, we'll figure out who's right. I said, how? He said, whoever is the wisest among the three of you. So how would we know who is the wisest? And everyone's thinking, well, I'm the wisest, of course. And then he said, well, whoever can hold the breath for the longest time is the wisest. And there's a breath, like, what? Oh, I've been dead so long, I forgot about it, And so, yeah, what breathing? Even when I was alive, I didn't really give it much thought. When I died, I just figured I'd stop breathing. Well, he said, well, let me assure you that even living beings, all the humans and, we really don't think about breathing until we're dead and it's stopped. So it's okay if you have forgotten, just and see how long you can hold it. And he said, I'm going to watch whoever can hold the longest will be right. So they said, okay. And he said, well, get into the water and stay under the water the longest. And they said, well, that's a good plan. They all got into, lanky leggings, got into the water and whoosh, they went down. And what do you think the boy did? Of course, he left all his things. He didn't have to collect anything. He just ran. He flew with the wind over the hills and far away back to his village. And these three ghosts were under the water, like, whoosh, Rambut came up, like, oh my goodness, that was long. I think I'm the last one. And then he looked around like, ooh, well, like, I'm the first one. I can't believe it. But where's that boy, that living human? And he's nowhere around. So there is no witness that I was the first one who got out. So what's the best thing to do? Took a deep breath and went down again. And by then, Shambhut was like, ooh, whoosh, she came out. And I was like, oh my God, whew, that was long enough. I think I'm the last one. With the right word, of course. And she looked around like, no one, I'm the first one. I can't believe it. And where's that little guy? He's nowhere. Ooh, let me just And he went down, and by then that bursting lungs, Jonah just whoosh came out and did pretty much the same thing. No witness. Oh, and the first one, never mind, go down again. So the adage is that do not stay alone by the pond with the palm trees all around. Because if you stay too long, one of them will shoot out of the water, find you as the witness, and snap your neck and then go down, of course. He'll just take care of that one witness, so never be alone. So while that's a funny story and kids take it very seriously, although in the cities there are no ponds with palm trees around, but they still feel like, ooh, I need to watch out and be very careful. But we have two very important lessons here. One is that we really, in this competitive urban world, we have forgotten about breathing. Really, we do it like everything else, like circulation and whatever else the organs are doing, secreting juices and the pee pee poo poo affairs. It's all parasympathetic nerve system automaticity. And we don't think about that conscious, receiving with humility, this living force, this life force that's coming to us, surrounded all around us, and we don't even worry about where the next breath is coming from, whether it will come. So that's one thing. The other thing is that we think those who are mastering or even thinking of just breathing, we have taken it to the point of like it's a skill set to be mastered, rather than it is something to be received with grace and with that gratitude and feeling that fulfillment and honoring it. And the final lesson is that yogic breathing. As a very insignificant yoga teacher, again, this is all from the sages that I've read, that it's the pause in between the inhalation and exhalation is what helps us with the rumination of breath, helping us rise in our thought processes, moving from lust and hunger and just self-sustenance and survival and competition, all the way to the blooming of our complete faculties with which we were born. Finding our dream, or even honoring everything around us and the community, all of it, the higher chakras. That opens up when we take in the breath and then wonder. It's not holding the breath as a feat, but just wondering like, wow, I feel so full, and my blood is rejoicing that availability of the air, and then letting go with a gratefulness back into the environment, and then saying, okay, I feel so complete. Even without the air, I have been nourished so much that I'm okay to wait and again welcome the new breath, like usher in the breath through our nostrils, the coolness, and then the warm air out, and the pauses in between, which in Sanskrit, the term is kumbhak. So it's like the fullness, internal retention and external retention. So the antar kumbhak and bahir kumbhak, between inhalation and exhalation. So then all this power, like I can do it, will not be there. And we will really, the wisdom centers, when the boy was saying the wisest will be holding the breath the longest, again, the wisdom is that the longer you can feel that I'm okay with what I've received, the air, and I'm doing the optimum use of it, the calmer you are in spirit. And it's like the calm pond surface where you can see yourself better when it's not rustling in the wind or we are not throwing stones at it, it is like a mirror. Our inner self becomes like a mirror the more we do. And as you know, I just finish this part, I would say my only analogy when I was thinking of the story is like with money. You know, when we live in this world again, like monetary, um, um, the availability of money and the feeling of opulence, we often like, I got a big paycheck, let's go for some shopping, feeling good. It's like the moment the thing came in, we're ready to
Mm,
lose it again,
mhm,
giving it away, living from paycheck to paycheck. Rather, if we have money, you enjoy that opulence and then spend as needed
mhm.
with thankfulness, and that is like letting go
Yes.
of the money, and receiving the nutrition with grace. And then when there is no money flow for a little while, or when the money flow is less, we still say, okay, what I've received before, I'm having the ability to wait
Yes.
without panic,
Mhm.
because I have enjoyed the fullness slowly, which means I have my bank balance, I have some savings for the rainy day. I am having the ability to wait.
Yeah.
And then again receive with grace when it comes in. That is such a beautiful life skill that we can
Sure.
teach children. Breathing, and the same thing with money
Yes.
and other resources
Yes.
also. And I
It's
know
be-
you have so much to.
well, it's beautiful all that you've shared because it's so rich. There's just so many layers to so much of what you shared right now. And that story is really beautiful too because, you know, there is this, holding the breath and then that release that goes out. It's on so many different levels. So I'm really happy that you shared the different analogies. And even layered in that story was just the humor, right? So there's this release of letting go too, and for us to be able to feel that ease of life as well, because we obviously are living in times that you know we for most of us haven't experienced other types of pandemics or something of this nature, and all the implications involved with that, and just the idea that we're at this time and we're facing these different challenges, how we
Mhm.
can find ease and how
Yeah.
to face these challenges with the use of breath as a practical tool. It's right here, it's not even in our fingertips, it's in our whole being, and
And
it,
especially, it's so nice that you said that, because now in this pandemic, it's a disease that is actually attacking the
yeah,
respiratory system. And so many of the people we love, and even people we do not know, are suffering now in hospitals or at
yes,
home with fear. And as we have more fear around the respiration, it tightens even
it's more
more.
constricted,
The
yes.
more we pause and the slowness, the alveoli will learn how to relax. And
Mhm.
as a comparison, the ghosts that were under the water holding the breath,
Yeah,
they were having competition in their mind
right,
so much that they were not enjoying the pause. And so their coming out to breathe was also
yes.
like fear related. Did anyone see me? Did I lose? Oh, am I the loser? I'm not going to accept it. But rather, the pause of the wisdom that comes with the pause of relaxation
Right,
is what you
right.
said, that mm, finding, that inner
Yeah, it's
energy.
so important. And I know, as you had stated, that for so many people right now, because they're experiencing challenges with this disease, whether it's physically, emotionally, or mentally, like
Mhm.
producing anxiety, things like that. And when we were talking about this, it made me think of a couple of experiences in my own life that
Mhm.
related to this idea of this constriction or anxiety tied to it. Two different examples, one more on the physical level. Let's see, I think there might be someone, yeah, joining us now. So on the physical level, I have four children, as I had stated when we first started, and two of my sons had croup as a child. And this croup was really debilitating in the sense that when it would come on, it was like, what seemed to be a cough or a cold that was coming on, but then, it would change. And the way I knew it as a first-time mom with my first one, I didn't know it, but I came to know it pretty quick because it sounded then like you were like a barking seal. And he would go into a state where there was constriction, there was inflammation, and he would get constricted and couldn't breathe. So one of my first son who had it till about he was 12 years old, but he had to learn at a very early age. And I actually experienced him almost losing life when the first round came when he was really young. And I remember sitting with him energetically and speaking to him as in like, don't leave yet, there's still work to continue. And it was really a life or death matter. And we lived out rurally where there was not, I didn't even have a car at the time to get him somewhere. And we were just at home, and I did a lot of work with him through homeopathics and just Reiki and laying the hands. But he had to learn how to breathe and stay calm. And the opposite of what it was producing, which was that fight or flight to and then get really hysterical and scared and fearful, which would constrict it more. He had to learn how to bypass that and relax and breathe slowly and deeply and have that kind of holding and letting that ease come out of it. Now, we became really skilled at that. So by the time my fourth son came, skipped there for a minute. My fourth son came, he had the same thing too. And for him, it was the same kind of thing. I remember him having a conversation with me at 5 and talking himself down into being calm, like, and then me saying, you got to hold on and just be calm. And him saying, I got to be calm. I got to be calm, and it's such an amazing thing for such a young child to have understood what he had to do and kick into that mode to carry him through that episode, because then he would ease out of it. And we had to do different things to help that. But so that was a physical thing that was attributed to the croup. But then, more recently, I had an experience with a relative who had an episode where she had become triggered by a trauma and had become extremely anxious. And in that moment when she was experiencing that nerve system taxed, and the same kind of thing, it's a fight or flight response at that moment because it's like a panic attack. And she went into what seemed like almost a hysteria, and talking her down into the breathing so that she could catch that breath and that wave to ease and reset her parasympathetic system, which is what's necessary because our brains don't automatically do that. We have to, that is something that we need to develop to do that resetting for ourselves. And it was a really important experience for both of us to share, but to further affirm this thing that I know that, it's not just on the physical level, but the emotional level and the mental level that we experience this necessity of being able to breathe. So those are just a couple examples of, what my experiences have been with breath. And along my own personal journey, I have learned so much about breathing. And more recently, in the past year, it's been a part of a lot of the different trainings that I'm doing with energy medicine and just how important it is. So it's really such a beautiful practice. And I wanted to share just a moment. And I know that, one of the things we're going to talk about is some different ways we can breathe. And so, as you had mentioned, it is just being able to breathe and be conscious that this is, something that we're enjoying. Of course, if I step out on my balcony or you step out on nature, you go out for a walk, or, a beautiful autumn day or spring day, you catch a breeze that goes by, or summer, and all of a sudden you take that deep breath in and it feels just beautiful. But there's these other things that we can do on a daily basis, and we can incorporate that into our mindful practices.
Yes.
And one of these ways that I do it as I wake up in the morning or prepare for bed is just to do this kind of breathing and it's centering myself in my meditations.
Do you want to do one now? Like,
No, it's real simple, and there's so many different ways. So that's what I wanted to point out, that there are just so many tools that are accessible to us. This one is very simple, where we would just, you can bring your hands to your heart or somewhere, rest them on your legs or wherever is most comfortable, and you would be able to just take the deep breath in, an inhalation of 4, count of 4, and then holding for 4, and then an exhalation of 4, and a holding for 4, and then the inhalation again. So we'll try that together with a count of inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 4, and inhale, this time just silently. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And then you can just return to your regular breathing, but at least 3 sets of that in a very conscious way can help reset that whole parasympathetic nervous system. And so if you find yourself in a moment where, let's say you have an encounter of any kind, you're driving and all of a sudden, someone cuts you off, or, you have a exchange with your spouse or your child or someone you work with, and it just is that kind of thing where it just is enough to cause like a feeling of disturbance in you, or maybe it does cause agitation in you, or some triggers some emotional connection to whatever that encounter is. We can train ourselves to wait, stop, do this breathing. And it reminds me of an old cartoon that I remember seeing when I was a child, and I think it was with Andy Panda. Some of you may remember Andy Panda from long ago, but Andy Panda's father used to get mad. He would get so mad. I mean, he was always the type that would just like fire up, right? And Andy Panda would say, "Remember, Dad?" And he'd have to go, "Ooh." And he'd go like this, and he'd start counting on his fingers to 10. He's like, "Count to 10, and he'd have to like breathe in to the count of 10, and then slowly release breath. But it's such a useful practice, and it's a great way for being able to reset even those moments that, we all find ourselves in the course of the day, but being conscious enough to know, wait, I can reset this, and then my energy can kind of get balanced again.
Right. And there are so many kind of stressors. Like one is, the anger that happens because of our expectations didn't get met, or someone said something. And the other kind is where you are concerned so much, whether, if your spouse or children or anyone is sick, that am I doing all the thing that was possible to help? Is the doctor doing the right treatment, or should we have done this? All the hesitation and self-doubt and overly concerned about something. Unknowingly, we are breathing less and less and less. And our body's joints, like especially the extremities, are tightened without our knowledge. And then when we wiggle our toes at the end of the day, I see, as I'm just saying it or doing it, almost a yawn is coming to me. Like, where did the yawn come? It's like, like that cat stretch, that, how we just kind of stretch ourselves immediately. All those tired, stressed parts of the body says, I need a little bit more air, or feeling that thankfulness of that air coming in. So many powerful ways. And I like the story that you brought in about breathing difficulties. And, as an asthma patient, I'm empathetic to any kind of breathing difficulties that happen. And of late, I had kind of my teenage asthma come back all of a sudden due to so many things that I'm not even aware of, And steroid treatment of that brought in more problems of the esophagus, where it was constricted to the point at the doctor's clinic, she's saying, I think you're having a panic attack. And I've never had one. I'm thinking, well, this probably is a panic attack. I don't know, but what do I do? When I wish I had someone like you to ease me into the breathing, because that was where I needed the help. So finally, I brought back my old habit of yoga, which I had kind of, again, busy urban life had made it like I'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow never comes. Then finally, now it's a routine for me that I do take medication for asthma, because that is necessary for whoever is suffering, whoever is listening to this one, that you have any kind of breathing issues, or your family members or loved one, just know that as much as possible, yes, medical help is necessary. It's not that, okay, I can just change my mindset and get over the problem. It's probably too risky to do that. Do all that you think, alternative medicine or whatever appeals to you, but keep working on this conscious breathing, and also how you are not crunched up. You are opening up, your whole body, welcoming the air, and honoring the stress that, yes, these were the things for which my senses or my reaction did act up, but it doesn't have to be like that. But not forcing yourself to be calm, that, hey, calm down. That might be counterproductive. And I often remember, that when my son was crying, like bawling with his mouth open, ha, 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 just I should bring him in front of the mirror and leave. So he's crying in front of the mirror and just sometimes looking at himself, and slowly he got, she's like, yeah, well, what is this fellow doing? He kept on looking at his reflections, and eventually he was all teary-eyed, but he had forgotten the crying. When it's emotional crying, for physical pain, we cannot really do that. But sometimes we are stressed out, but then when we look at ourselves, and the mirror was in a physical sense for the child, but when we just reflect, and that curiosity that, am I stressed out? Okay, let me see. That's when, I always tell my yoga friends who do with me that wherever you're breathing, without calming it down, just observing how forceful is my exhalation. Just exhalation. Is it like the bull? Like, how the bull cartoons are? The nose that goes like those rocket propulsion kind of cloud. That's because whenever we are stressed out, our exhalation is like a forceful, unknowingly. So if we hold our palm somewhere near our chin at the chest level and exhale, do you feel air fluttering, like two channels coming and tickling your palm? That means you feel your exhalation. Slowly reach down to the point as you exhale where you can barely feel it. Like if you moved 1 millimeter further, you would not feel your exhalation. That's kind of the length. That's what it said. What's the length, the physical length of your exhalation from your nose till that point. The funny thing is, the moment you start doing this exercise, there's a huge difference from the first exhalation to the second to the third, because you are now gazing inside yourself to say, how long is it? Can I feel it? Your mind is diverted from the anger or your perception, your take on it, your attitude, approach. All that was suddenly set aside, and you are now feeling that, and you are calmer. So my yoga teachers used to say, don't try to calm yourself down. That's telling a child, stop crying. I said, stop crying. No, it's no big deal. Your balloon flew away. No big deal. We'll get you another balloon. Just calm down, okay? And the child is then just still grieving that balloon. But diverting the child in a loving way to something else is probably a good way. So similarly, here I'm diverting the thought into my breath and the length, looking inside, am I stressed? Took the mind away. And just for information, the very angry people at the moment of anger, there is no angry people like a label, but I'm saying when you are very angry, you might feel till your navel, when your palm is in front of your
Wow. Yeah.
navel, you can
Yeah.
feel it. That's a very highly stressed upset moment. It can be
Sure.
anger, or usually in grief, we don't breathe so hard. We breathe hard when we are like our ego is bruised.
Mm.
So being aware of it, you know that here it is very common, chest level,
Mm-hmm.
level-headed, calm personality. When it's still the chin, you are very poetic and maybe able to write a very insightful, journal entry for yourself, graceful writing. For saints, and this is again, I've heard, because we never go check our a saint's breath, right? It's only till the upper lip. It's
Wow.
just about an inch. They exhale like it's no big deal. They can just go on forever. And
Mm-hmm.
in yoga, they say it's usually double the time. For very wise people, inhalation will be 4, exhale will be 8.
Mm-hmm.
But for people like us, it should be at least 4 and 4, and not too scrunched up. The
Yeah.
common data is 15 breaths um, every minute
Yes.
for an urban human being, which is 2 seconds inhalation, 2 seconds exhalation, no time in between,
Mm-hmm.
15 cycles. That's too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And dogs, very
Yes.
active dogs, they have shorter lifespan, but turtles, and there are some other, even elephants,
Yes.
have very slow breathing per minute.
Yes.
So they have a longer lifespan species, as a
Yeah.
species. So there's something to think about, that maybe the length of the breath and the length of
Yes.
this breath, all of it, and our feeling
Yes.
of gratitude has a part to play on our whole endocrine system.
Yes.
Because even type 2 diabetes is coming from stress, urban living. Maybe they're breathing 15 times a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to make it 20, 20
Yeah.
times 3 minutes,
I
just,
wanted to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sure,
No,
come
I
on.
was going to say it's what's interesting is because that part where you were speaking about don't try to calm down. I think that there is this other side that if we're being more conscious and we're experiencing an unpleasant type of emotion that's overtaking us, we will want to calm ourselves down. It is natural to want to calm down, but I think that without activating your brain to tell you to do this thing, the more you practice it and the more you're doing it, then automatically it
Yes.
does it for you. It
Right,
calms
that's
you
what
down.
I was saying. But
Yeah, and I practice yoga too in different,
Mhm.
not a specific one. That's just part of my daily living and different things that I've gathered over the years. But I love the idea that everything that you bring onto the mat, you're taking it in, it's providing you with nutrients, and then you're digesting this, and then you find yourself in experiences outside in the world off the mat, and all of a sudden you realize that you're activating that which you were doing there, because it was a practice you were doing there.
Mhm.
And it's a very powerful tool, and I
Right.
think a lot of people bypass it because it seems so simplistic in a way, but it's
Mhm.
it's not even like you had mentioned initially. There's certainly a ton of ways that breathing is being taught to people. And it is true that it does have this component for people that are on spiritual paths and people, like you had mentioned, wise people. I know that one of my teachers talks about having 2 breaths a minute. Okay. and, working with this, and I know that there's people out there that do this. But the reason I gave you that 4-4 and you talked about it as extending it a little bit more is that's a very accessible way for anyone, no matter no spiritual practices, anybody can do that. It's an easy thing to follow. It's easy to remember, 4 in, 4 up, 4 down. But the way that it works for you and the way you can extend that and lengthen that and all those things are just going to serve to benefit you even deeper. Clarity of mind, besides all those benefits that we've already talked about. And another...
Yeah, and many diseases we're not aware of, that gets taken care of.
Yeah, and another piece to that is, all of us are experiencing stress on some levels, even if it's productive. Like I know someone who, does exams a lot because they're in university coursework right now, and they're stressed, and they're aware that they're stressed. So they're utilizing breathing and other techniques. But until we really integrate that into a lifestyle and we know it, and we're all different, what stresses me might not stress you, and vice versa. And there's no judgment around it. It's about knowing ourselves. It's about knowing what stresses us. What are our stressors? How do we respond to it? How do we become more conscious, more able to be the masters of this vessel that we carry? And it's such a profound experience to work with it in that way.
And I love how you said, integrate it in your life, like infuse slowly. It doesn't have to be that you will change suddenly. I took so long to get into that mode of, changing slowly, but repeated, consistent use, everyday practices help us. Pilots, when they're landing a full plane load of people, they have so much, their pulse goes up to 125.
Wow.
Because it's like, not only that the airplane is mighty expensive, but what a thing will happen. The whole company, the management, the airport, and the people and their families. So they have so much on their hands, such a responsible job, that their pulse goes up. And same thing for people who have difficult job, like a neurosurgeon who's trying to save the life, separating a Siamese twins. It's so many nerves, so many things. One mistake can be so expensive. So their pulse probably is bad, or even if the pulse doesn't go up, it's a stressful job. So they, each one of us have certain moments in our lives when we're going through it. And when I went to my speech therapy, and I'd never thought I would need speech therapy for some, digestive system problem that was affecting my speech completely, where I was supposed to not talk, not laugh, not pick up a phone, not visit anybody, not tell stories to my child, and complete silence. And then she said that the way you breathe in, you're puffing your chest out, but you're sucking your tummy in, your shoulders are tight, your cheeks are tight, loosen. And I thought, how can that be? I don't feel tight. She said, work on it. I'll meet you after 2 weeks. What a revelation, because I kept working on myself. Let go, I kept saying. And then the pain came on, pain in my cheeks and shoulders. And then she said, it's working. I said, why is it hurting? She said, it's been tight for so many years that you forgot that it was tight. Now you have talked to yourself, you have let your muscles go, and now they are kind of beginning to realize the pain they were in, which I was in all the time without realizing. She said, now you're feeling it. Now the healing will start. You will be out of pain.
How
breathe
amazing.
in with the belly out, like a baby breathes. Always. They don't see how my waistline is looking. Am I looking smart enough? No. Let go of the belly when you're breathing in. When you breathe out, it just falls like a squish, balloon, like a softened balloon.
Also known as diaphragmatic breathing.
Yes. So talk to the diaphragm. It's okay to let go and go down into the belly. There is room. And watch a baby, sleeping, and watch your baby only in diapers and it's standing a little crooked and the belly coming out each time it breathes in, not worried about how it looks,
Right,
look
right.
smart or unsmart. That is so therapeutic. And we can
Yes,
learn from bring our
yes.
childhood memory back.
Yes, it's true. And another thing that's very useful, and again, whether you're a neurosurgeon or you're just having that kind of day and something is triggering something for you, because people live with all kinds of traumas and things like that, and
Mhm.
it lives in the body on a cellular
Totally.
level until
Mhm.
we actually learn how to heal that and actually remove that imprint. One of the
Mhm.
things that you can do very easily when you're experiencing physical pain too is, for instance, a really simple thing for me is sometimes I get this tightness around my neck, especially if I've been on the computer working for long periods of time. Sometimes it's even when I've been standing up in between and trying to be conscious of like not sitting too long or, all those kinds of things. But I'll place it in the area where I'm feeling that tightness and I'll put pressure on it, apply it. So I'm activating my fingertips. I'm consciously working with that point that I'm touching.
So
And
do
I'm
you take a
now
breath?
and I take my breath right to that spot. I breathe into the spot when I actually feel the point where the pain is or where the tightness is. For me, it's like a congestion that I get. And then I'll hold it and I actually accentuate that point. So it's almost like that drill, like right there. And then I'll breathe real deep right into that spot. And I'll hold it for a few moments and then slowly release it out. And some would say that breath itself is like spirit. So whether you're looking at it that way or you're looking at it from you're taking in air and air is an element and it lives in us and now you're healing yourself because that's our capacity, right? Whatever way it is that you're perceiving it, these are some of the ways that you can work with it. And it's just
Amazing.
such an amazing tool. So I'm so happy we had this time today and we were able to talk about it in so many multiple levels. And I know for people that view this, certainly if you have questions, reach out. Both Balaka, sorry,
Wow.
I still get that.
It's all good, Balaka.
It's really important that you have, I know, so many pieces to share with people, and so if you want to reach out, you can find her links on our community page at Pure Esperanza, as well as you can reach out to me, Esperanza Smith, and I'll be happy to connect with you and also to put you in connection with other people, because it's these types of discussions, webinars, events where we can gather with others, especially at this time, when we're maybe a little more restricted because of the pandemic and things like that. But even when things ease up, it's just important to know that there are people who care and that are wanting to work with you on your journey of well-being. And that's why we're here with Pure Esperanza and hosting these kinds of events. And why we've picked this idea of working with stories is so important because, there are parts of our own being that live in the realm of stories and archetypes. And so when we hear these stories, we take in and we integrate. This is the holistic part of the work that we do.
Right.
So many different levels. So it's not just like information that's coming to you from your brain, but it's activating images. And those are language. That's a whole language that lives in another realm. And I wanted to share this piece. When I was a Waldorf teacher in Waldorf education, one of the things that I learned in my training and that I utilized all the time was the way we worked with curriculum and subject matter, which was taking in this information. Sometimes it was a little bit more on the left brain, and then we would have an activity that allowed it to be integrated in the right brain. So there was a continual flow in the course of the day, in the course of the week, in the course of the month, of the season, that we were continually, consciously placing an intention of an inhale and an exhale, an inhale and an exhale. And we kept this going around, and it was almost in this flowing motion of a lemniscate, which is kind of like what our lungs do, an inhale and an exhale. And we would keep this motion, because we knew that by doing this, we kept the balance for the children. So they weren't just sitting at the desk and having to focus and use all their
Another worksheet.
or, you know, just be in the right hemisphere and create, but not be able to work with the brain and actually develop that as well. So these are things that we can incorporate on a day-to-day basis, because it's really the art of living and the way we breathe.
Yeah,
So
that's
with that,
powerful that you talked about stories, you know.
yes,
Sometimes the stories come and stay, not used for quite some time, and then
yes,
come back right when you need it. So these are like little things to tuck in as a mental investment, but not, you know, even unconsciously,
yeah,
some stories will
exactly.
stay with you.
That's the magic of it. So that's the part that we are so honored to be with you and be weaving these stories of your well-being. So with that, please join us on these monthly webinars that we're having with Weaving Stories of Your Well-Being, different topics each month. We have other events coming up as well that will serve you. Go to our Experience Us page at PureEsperanza.org. Follow us on social media. There's always daily inspiration. There are always things to keep you nourished
I
and
just
nurtured.
wanted to add one thing, Esperanza, that today the oil that I got at your site, those are certain new things. Yes, you know, the lotus, 100% pure essential oil for the chakras opening, you know, the whole healing from within. I could never imagine that the aroma could be so powerful.
It's so potent.
Yeah, so potent. And it was like it could put a, you know, just at the physical level, any perfume to shame. But at the mental and inner domain, the spiritual domain, I'm like curiously waiting for it to unfurl as I get into that daily habit of using it. So thank you.
Yes, and body, mind, and soul. It's true. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is another beautiful way to accentuate that whole practice of breathing. This is something that I also and my husband use at nighttime, and we're working right now with some heart chakra work and the communication center as the center for our lower chakras and our upper chakras. And it's just a beautiful way to not only enter sleep, but induce it as well. So, you know, that's another thing, because you want to get into that beautiful breathing of sleep, you know, and how restorative that is. So these sacred Egyptian oils are on our shop at PureEsperanza.org. And there's just so much there that you can connect with the community, and so many people, educators, artists, healers, all here serving this journey that we're on. So thankful to be here with you, sharing all of this and sharing our stories. Thank you so much. Blessings. Thank you, Balaka. Thank you.
Thank you, Esperanza. And thank you, everyone, for put your comments down below. We would love to know about your story as well.
Yes, thank you. Peace. Good night.
Grace. Yeah.